This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Detroit is the greatest!
Straight up light you on fire for a Coney dog right now.
Darren McCarty comes back with Neiman in front of him. McCarty draws. McCarty in. McCarty scores! A magnificent goal! Darren McCarty!
Stafford takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Welcome, everybody, to the 91st edition of the Motor City Sports Rant. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Jason, not available for this podcast, attending to some family matters, probably too devastated to even come into the studio and talk about the Detroit Lions. As I sit here recording, sitting here by myself, and I'm sitting here wondering, how do I really feel about the team that I support, the Detroit Lions? Like everybody, Saturday, 8:15, in front of the couch, having a bunch of chips, snacks, pizza, alcoholic beverages. I got ready, spent time with the family, went to a birthday party, and the Lions game was on. And leading up to it, usually in past seasons, I would set my day up and not do anything else. I would watch all the pregame coverage. I would get excited. I would definitely immerse myself in the game, look at the matchups, kind of look at what was going to go on. But this year, with everybody talking about the Lions and the struggles that they had the previous 3 games, I found myself kind of not really caring about watching the game. I knew it was going to be on. I knew I was definitely going to tune in to watch the game. But for me personally, I just didn't feel that passion, that drive. And maybe because I knew in the back of my head, being that I am a Lions supporter, being that I've watched this team since I was a little kid, I just realized that there wasn't really that much hope that the Lions were going to come away on Saturday on the road with the victory. I mean, throughout the whole week, I tried to figure out ways. Some people tried to creep in there and instill a little bit of hope in me when I was talking to my friends, looking at the coverage in the media. And for me, I just would say, you know what? If a good football team played on Saturday versus the Seattle Seahawks, they could have competed much better and not lose 26-6. Seattle came into the game, struggling, having played a close contest with the San Francisco 49ers. They have talent, but with some injuries, the Seattle Seahawks were prone for a team to come in there in their house and get a victory. Did the Lions do that? Did the Lions come out of the gate firing? Did the Lions show passion? Did the Lions show heart? No. And as you watched the game, right from the first possession, you realized, my goodness, there was miscommunication from Matthew Stafford and Anquan Boldin. There were drops. It just didn't seem like the Lions themselves had the belief that they could go out on the road. It was like, it was like the organization, the Lions, the players felt, hey, we made the postseason. We can tell everybody we're on the right path. You make a trip out to Seattle, and no, when you go out there, you want to compete. You want to go out there with the ability, with the hope that you put your best foot forward to show your fan base what you're all about and to show the nation that's tuning in prime time. And after the fact, you got the commentators saying that maybe the moment was too big for the Detroit Lions. Maybe they didn't believe that they could pull off an upset. But at least throw a punch, at least do something. When you saw the game and how it played out, you really felt like the Detroit Lions rolled over. They just accepted their fate. They accepted that they were going to go into Seattle and get taken out. And it's devastating as a Lions fan. As I'm sitting there, I didn't really get mad. Not too often, just tweeting away on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, reacting to the fans. It was just one of those things where, again, the things that cannot happen in a postseason game happen for the Detroit Lions. And it just is mind-boggling. You go out there with drops. You're veterans, leaders, Anquan Boldin, Haloti Ngata. And quite frankly, I was surprised at Haloti Ngata's production. He's been a solid addition. Obviously, he's not the player of old. You're getting a guy at the tail end of his career, but he's been an asset for the Lions. When can you say that? A couple pickups this year from Bob Quinn, have contributed. When can you say that? So to see mistakes from Anquan Boldin and Haloti Ngata taking personal foul penalties was so devastating and uncalled for. It really hurt the team, and you don't expect that from your leaders. You don't expect that at all. So it was very surprising. And I just found myself watching the game as it progressed going, you know what? I called it. We knew it. We knew that the Lions weren't going to perform at the level that we wanted. Throughout the game, it was, I hate to say same old Lions. I want to be a little bit more creative than that. But it was indicative of what this organization has shown us. If you were objective and you watched the team and you were an individual that tried to remove your fandom and undying loyalty, and that's the side of things that I personally dislike, is that just because you're critical, just because you're realistic and you've been a longtime fan and you point out that you don't really have a lot of hope that the Lions are going to win, doesn't mean you're not a fan. It doesn't mean that you don't want the team to win. It's just that you know that the best way to do it, and the way I told the guys here was, don't expect anything. Don't expect the Lions to perform. Don't expect them to make plays. Don't expect them to score a touchdown. Don't expect anything. And if they over-deliver and they actually walk away with the victory, it'll feel that much sweeter because no one will have believed or no one will have thought that they could have pulled it off. Going into the game, I felt like, there was going to be close. I was really surprised by the score. I was surprised at the lack of creativity on offense. I was surprised that, in all phases of the game, the Lions didn't show up. I was surprised. I'm going to sit here and say it. But during the week and leading up to it and looking back at old podcasts that Adam and I did and looking back at things that I've said and written and tweeted about, it happened. And then after the game, it's just, it wasn't one of those things where I felt angry. It wasn't one of those things where I felt like I was devastated. It was kind of like one of those things where, I kind of knew it. And it came to fruition live on television that after the game, the Lions, put a crappy performance out there on film for everybody to judge. And it's another situation where the Detroit Lions let down their fan base, one and done, just a participant. That's it. That's all the Lions did this year was participate in the postseason. And it leads to so many things that we're going to talk about. And I'm going to try to get out here in the time that I have. I'm going to try to get this through in between all the other things I'm doing. But I just had to get it out. I had to start talking about what the hell happened with these Detroit Lions. And the first thing that I'm going to tell you is this. Once the Lions decided that they wanted to squash all the talk about Jim Caldwell, once that happened, I knew they were in the right mindset. What is it about answering a question from the media about Jim Caldwell's status that freaked the Lions out so much that they had to come out and squash it and tell the national media, tell Adam Schefter that, hey, he's our guy? It makes no sense because in the end, Jim Caldwell did not have his team prepared. And so my honest opinion is Jim Caldwell and the Lions, the team that performed, is a direct reflection of Jim Caldwell. Flat, uninspired, not ready to go. I'm not saying go out there and the Lions, you expect the Lions to go out there and dominate the Seattle Seahawks. You don't go out there and expect flea flickers and things like that. But why is it that Thomas Rawls goes off for that many yards? Why not Zach Zenner? Why not somebody else for the Detroit Lions to be an unsung hero for once? Why has it got to be that the Lions got egg on their face? Why couldn't Seattle's defense not show up? Why? Because they're well coached. They're well prepared. The Seattle Seahawks believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that they were going to get a victory. Hell, ESPN, before the game, had a graphic that I saw that already had them playing the Atlanta Falcons. It was like a bye week. But do you feel out there, when you watch the Detroit Lions, that they were prepared? Do you feel like that Jim Caldwell, whatever he told the guys, got them riled up? Did Eric Ebron have a strong performance? Did Matthew Stafford have a strong performance? Did anybody out there on the Detroit Lions take the bull by the horns and lead this football team? Anybody at all? Exactly. You can't think of anything. And then, at the same time, there are factors that also contributed to the loss. The referees did you no favors. And this goes back to the Dallas playoff game. This goes back to last year's matchup versus the Seattle Seahawks on Monday Night Football. I did a podcast where I was screaming and yelling, and I posted it on our Twitter page. I posted the podcast, and I was like, you know what? It's time to go look in the archives because I know I talked about this. And there's a reason why the referees, the NFL, doesn't respect the Detroit Lions. Because when these plays happen, what is going on? Is anybody at all throwing a fit? Is anybody at all even paying attention to the referees? I said word for word, and you can go find it on our YouTube page, the complete archive of the Detroit Sports Podcast. Go look after the Seattle game. What did I say? That Jim Caldwell comes out and is just, nice and calm and professional, that this was going to keep happening. I said in the 2015 season, this is going to keep happening. And in the 2016 season, when you go out and look on the internet and you scour the reports, what are you reading? That the NFL and the refs screwed the Lions so many times this year. There were so many bad calls against the Lions that it was mind-boggling. And you saw it in the game versus Seattle. You've seen a game that was called completely differently. You had, Russell Wilson, in situations where most people would have thought he grounded the football. Nope, he was in between the tackles. He didn't throw it to anybody in particular that I saw. Was there a flag for intentional grounding? No. Was there a flag on the touchdown? No. These are things that are blatant. And why does that happen? Because you don't have an organization, you don't have a coach that people respect. You ever see that kind of stuff happen with the New England Patriots? Is there a call out there? And if there is, let me know on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. Is there a blatant, awful call that terribly screwed the New England Patriots that didn't get addressed right then and there? Consistently? Do the New England Patriots get consistently screwed? No, because they have respect. They speak up on things. Bill Belichick would not stand for his team getting screwed. And unfortunately, if you're going to continue with Jim Caldwell, this is going to keep happening. It's not going to get better. In no way, shape, or form should you expect the referees, even at home, to help you out in any certain circumstance. That it's always going to be the Lions against the opponent and the referees. And that's going to be the case. It's not going to get better. Okay, but do I blame the referees for the game? No. Brad Galley had a great tweet, and he talked about the devastating factors and the stats that are out there. You can't let an opposing running back run all over you. You cannot consistently shoot yourself in the foot and make mistakes on offense. In a playoff game, you only score 6. Wonderful, on the road. It just stinks that when you break down a game and you break down a team, you see the things that happen right in front of you. What did I say when I talked about what it was going to take for the Lions to beat a good team? The Lions were going with the status quo. In a playoff game, they decided that they felt like, okay, I'm going to go out there and we're going to try to execute the same simple offense and try to go on the road for Seattle and try to get the victory. You hadn't won a game this entire season versus a team that was playoff caliber. Not a single victory versus a team that was in the postseason. What does that say? Okay, in years past, the Lions were not able to defeat the teams that were lesser than them. So they entered the postseason as the 6th seed. Many felt, okay, that's actually where you deserve to be. You were not as good as the other 5 teams ahead of you, and you were better than the teams that were just below you. I felt like, you know what? This team, this 2016 team, had an opportunity to do some things if there was a different head coach. If you ask yourself, if there was somebody else running the ship with this talent, everybody's making excuses, and that's all I hear for why there was failure. I don't make excuses. I told everybody what was going on. I was able to see anybody that's watched football that can formulate an opinion could see what was going on with that Lions offense. It was too conservative. Week after week, if you follow our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, me and the crew getting together, talking and tweeting with the fans and tweeting with everybody. What did we say? Throw the damn ball once, twice. Try and execute a deep pass. You bring in Marvin Jones to replace Calvin Johnson. And the notion was, for a time, the offense was able to perform at a higher level. But the second half of the season, my goodness, they went way too conservative, and good football teams were able to contain the Detroit Lions. At the beginning of the year, when we previewed the Lions, we said, and we talked to Dan Miller, we talked to the media, one of the things that was important and imperative was the balance between the run game and the pass game. And unfortunately, you did succumb to injuries in a lot of different situations. The injury to Amir Abdullah was devastating. He didn't participate for an extensive amount of time this year. But what happened? The Lions' offense was awful. The Lions' offense, week in, week out, the second half of the year was predictable. There was very few big plays to Marvin Jones. Look at the numbers. Matthew Stafford had, they say he took a step forward. I'm going to argue that. I'm going to argue that this offense neutered Matthew Stafford. They didn't want no turnovers. They didn't want Matthew Stafford zinging the ball all over the place. So you had this conservative offense and a lack of creativity at all. The first possession. Do you try to go up and down the field? No. The first possession, try something different. Try something unique, creative. Try something to get some kind of spark and hope in this team. But no, what do the Lions do? Run the same kind of plays, try to throw it to Eric Ebron, drops it. Try to throw it to Anquan Bolden, miscommunication. That's not an offense performing at that level at that point in the season. I was totally shocked. And you had those key moments that, you can look at Jim Bob Cooter and go, what are you doing? Jim Caldwell makes the right choice to go for it on fourth down, and you call that play? Now, granted, Mulligan was the fourth option, but that's the play. That's the guy that gets the ball. When Zach Zenner had been trying his ass off to get yards, you don't run the ball to him on fourth down? What does that say? This offense was not constructed in a way that would help against solid teams. Yeah, it's good enough, safe, got you into the postseason, but that's not what I want. I don't want safe. If you guys could see the text conversation that me, Jason, and Adam were having through the game, my goodness, how safe, look where it got you. How safe do you want it? Where did that get you? This safe conservative offense. It got your asses kicked and on a plane back to Detroit, just that quick. It's frustrating because you felt like this team could have been utilized much better. Golden Tate could have been utilized better. Eric Ebron, I'm still going to sit here and wonder why at this point in time they have faith that he's going to be a primetime player. He's not. He's not going to be a primetime guy. Primetime guys show up in these games. Primetime guys make plays. As you watched I'm hoping you guys watched the rest of the playoff games and watch what good teams do. All you can do is feel jealous. Look at what Aaron Rodgers was able to do. Look what the Giants players did. The Giants didn't step up. The moment was too big for them. The Packers stepped up at home. Aaron Rodgers stepped up. Look at his numbers. Look at the key moments. He was able to create big plays. Now, if you want to make excuses and you want to say, well, Matthew Stafford's numbers were significantly down because of his injury, okay, I can give you that. But all around collectively, do you feel like if Matthew Stafford's finger wasn't hurt, do you think the Lions would have walked away with the victory? Probably the game would have been closer. It would have been more along the line of what people thought, maybe 26-20 in that neighborhood. But no excuses. At this point in time, you have to be willing to now critically look at Matthew Stafford and say, are we willing to give this guy $150 million plus, over $25-26 million a season with no playoff wins? And you say, well, he's the best of the best? Matthew Stafford, Jim Caldwell are getting the benefit of the doubt because of the Lions' history. And you can't think like that. And to end the podcast in a little bit, I'll talk about the debate that I've been having with all these people that are so optimistic that the Lions are going in great direction. What on earth is giving you that perception that the Lions are moving in the right direction? Because they were so awful that they got a guy who brought in talent in Bob Quinn. They got a guy who didn't mess it all up. Yes, you give Bob Quinn credit. He brought in players that were productive. But at the same time, the decisions that he's about to make are very important and imperative for the future of this organization. And I'm not sure he's empowered to make the right ones. And I'll talk about that at the tail end. But when you look at things and you look at how the Lions played, does that tell you that Jim Caldwell and Matthew Stafford are moving forward with this team? What tells you that? You need a lot more pieces on this team. You obviously need, improved cornerback. You need another linebacker. You need a partner for Ziggy Ansah for the defensive line. You need a stud running back. You need a playmaking wide receiver. The offensive line is young, is going to take a step forward, but what's going to happen going forward? Everybody has hope that, everyone's going to get better. Bob Quinn's going to bring everybody here, and Matthew Stafford's going to lead the way. I would say that you need to be starting off at a critical level. I would say that you need to start off being critical of this team and not having hope. It doesn't mean you're not a fan. It means that you're honest. And then in the end, who's leading this team? This is what it is. This is the ceiling, guys. I'm telling you. Jim Caldwell is a great man, and he is keeping the team in order. And his program is very much in line with what the Fords want. He's very professional. He is a guy that will keep the guys in check. But when it's go time, when it's time to step it up, I believe that another coach would have had a different performance with this team. Jim Caldwell is not the guy for the job, in my opinion. He's a stopgap. He's done the job. He has performed admirably. That's why I wouldn't say I would dismiss him. I'd promote him. Promote Jim Caldwell to special advisor to Bob Quinn if you want to honor him. But I'm asking one question. I'm not asking can Jim Caldwell get this team to the postseason every year. All right? Because good football teams, that's not the expectation. Now, if you're starting at ground level and where they were 3 years ago, if you're starting over, and you want a head coach to get you to where you need to go in terms of getting to the postseason, making progress, establishing a regime, establishing a culture, Jim Caldwell's the guy. But is Jim Caldwell the guy that's going to go in a tight game and help your team win? Absolutely not. This is the ceiling. Maybe he'll even get you a playoff win. Do you think that guarantees Jim Caldwell a 5-year extension? No. And the same can be said for Matthew Stafford. Okay? Yes, he got hurt. Yes, his numbers significantly diminished as a result of the injury. And it was terrible. It was awful because after that New Orleans game, everybody had a lot of hope. Everybody was excited. You thought that maybe this is a situation where they're actually going to, really step up, be assertive, and actually try and change the reputation of the Lions. But he got hurt in the game, I believe, versus the Bears. He gets hurt. And in the end, it cost you the season. The offense just wasn't the same. But to talk about what the Lions did, I really feel like Jim Caldwell didn't get the job done. For the organization to come out the week of the postseason, the week of the big game, and say, hey, this is our guy. This is the guy that's going to be back in 2017. Did not the performance that you saw kind of shape your opinion a little bit? I would look at that, and when they pan to the box, what do you see? A stern Martha Ford and her advisors. I would be livid at that performance. Livid at the way the Lions played and showcased their talents. They deserved, the fans, everybody out there deserved to see much better in terms of the performance that the Lions put out there. And it wasn't there. They were discombobulated. They were out of sync. And they made Thomas Rawls look like, the second coming of Le'Veon Bell. You can't have that. All right? And now, you have those that are undying, willing to make the excuses for the Lions. And I respect that. If you're a diehard and your stance is, I'm going to support the Detroit Lions no matter what, ride or die. If they stink it up year after year, I'm going to support them. I'm going to say they're going to win. I think they're going to go out there and I'm going to tweet out that the Lions are going to, defeat everybody every week. Okay, fine. I respect that. But don't in turn then call me out for being realistic. I'm a fan. I'm a huge fan. And I even get called out for being called a fan by the reporters in town. And I'll talk about that in just a second here. But don't call out those that are being realistic. We all have the same goal, okay? My starting question is this. Can Jim Caldwell win the Super Bowl for me? No. Get somebody else. Period. That's the stance I take. I could be wrong. Maybe Bob Quinn surrounds him with so much talent that he can't do nothing but have success. But in the end, all you got to do is ask yourself this one question. Do you see Bob Quinn and Jim Caldwell standing there on a Sunday in February holding the Lombardi Trophy? My answer is no. And now you could turn your attention to Matthew Stafford. I mean, that's a big gamble to invest that much money in Matthew Stafford. As of now, there hasn't been talks of the organization wanting to extend him, but it's moving in that direction. The Lions are going to be forced to decide whether or not Matthew Stafford should be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. If you support that, you got to be prepared for a decade of futility and to be disappointed. At this point in time in his career, when you say, okay, well, he hasn't been surrounded by talent, that's all they've decided to do. They've tried their absolute best to surround him with people. Marvin Jones, Golden Tate, Eric Ebron. Now, maybe they're not the right guys, but they've tried to surround him with talent. And yet, at this point in time in his career, no playoff victories. Just look at the numbers versus opponents that are playoff caliber, that have winning records. The numbers aren't good, okay? And it's not like Matthew Stafford's going out there and throwing for 3 and 4 and 5 touchdowns and losing 48-35. Look at how many points the Lions scored. Go out there and look. Look at how many points the Lions have scored in the last 6 games. It's not that good. It's not to the caliber that is going to be needed to have success in the postseason. And it's just the number. Is he deserving of being the Lions quarterback? Yes. But to be the highest paid guy in the NFL, he hasn't earned it. Why? Because, you decided that you want to dink and dunk and be ultra conservative. That's what you want. You need to go out there again and now address the offense. You need a running back. You need a star wide receiver. But there were situations where Matthew missed some throws. There were some situations in the Seattle game where, again, he almost threw an interception right into the hands of the Seattle defender. He got lucky. Matthew Stafford got lucky a couple times to avoid danger. If you say that, if you're willing to make the excuse and say that, hey, Matthew Stafford's not the problem, you're ride or die with him, I give you credit because, I don't know, at this point in time, I have doubts. I have doubts that Matthew Stafford will have, the ability to win the Super Bowl in the big game. Hell, he hasn't even been. He has yet to be beyond the first round of the playoffs. How's he going to handle it in the second round? How's he going to handle a home playoff game? How's he going to handle it in the Super Bowl? At the end of the year meetings and things like that, Darius Slay says, "Oh, we're on the right path. We've gotten better progressively. We've gotten better consistently." That's not what I've seen. I've seen a first-round exit versus Dallas. I've seen a year in 2015 where you don't make the postseason, and I've seen a year in 2016 where you crap the bed in the postseason. What's going to happen in 2017 when you have a second-place schedule? Is the talent going to be upgraded enough to compete at that level? Sitting here today, I don't believe that. Sitting here today, I'm wondering, like I said earlier, is Bob Quinn really in charge? So I got into a little discussion with Justin Rogers of the Detroit News, and it went like this. His stance, and to his credit, he's there every day trying to get some intel, trying to do his work. And I give those guys credit because, man, when I watch those Jim Caldwell pressers and I watch the Matthew Stafford pressers, I don't know how I don't fall asleep, because I could write the pressers because they're all PC. They don't say anything, nothing of value. And so I give these guys credit that go in to Allen Park week in and week out. Heck, I'm trying to do it myself. Why not? Why not ask the questions that I want to know about? And that's why I love this project, because maybe there's an opportunity to do that. But Justin Rogers came out and was saying, listen, the narrative that's been given by radio stations that Bob Quinn didn't choose Jim Caldwell is totally false. That the people that Justin Rogers is talking to tell him that Bob Quinn has decided that Jim Caldwell is his guy. It was his choice. So, of course, then I sent like 10 barf emojis back to Justin Rogers. And he said, I'm just trying to stop the narrative that is being put out there that's probably false. And I said, well, I'm going to continue to drink in my sorrows here, because I'm thinking sitting here that I'm making a better choice than Bob Quinn. My wife understood it when I told her. And Justin Rogers wanted to label me a fan and said, oh, the mark of fandom is stamped when you think you can do a better job than the coach or the general manager. And I tell myself this, you can label me whatever you want. You can label me idiot. You can label me podcaster. You can label me, whatever you want. Outside of that, that wasn't the point. Whether I'm a fan or not, whether I'm a real journalist or not, whatever it is, I don't care what my label is. My point is this, and my wife understood it. My point is this, the general manager of the Detroit Lions can honestly scour the landscape and go, Jim Caldwell's my guy? What does that make Bob Quinn look like? Okay, so it's a lose-lose for Bob Quinn. One, you're a puppet. The first option is Bob Quinn's a puppet. That Martha Ford is just, in love with Jim Caldwell, and he's forced to keep him on. Or two, which is the basis of my, tweet to Justin Rogers, is you evaluate everything for a whole year. You just watch that playoff game, and Jim Caldwell's your guy? That makes him look stupid. And that's why I sent those tweets out. Okay, so whether I'm a journalist or not, or whether I'm a podcaster or fan or whatever it is, all I'm saying is it makes me sick both ways to think that Bob Quinn would actually use his football mind and think Jim Caldwell's the guy. He's not the guy. I know that. I knew that 3 years ago, and it's on tape, and I can go to it anytime I want. That's why I archive it, so that I can be held accountable for the things that come out of my big mouth. But if the general manager of the team that I support thinks that Jim Caldwell's the guy, I don't know what I want to believe. Do I want to believe that he chose Jim Caldwell? I'd rather believe he's a puppet, in my opinion. I think it's better, for the perception. Hell, I would do it. If Martha Ford was going to pay me that much money, I probably would do whatever she said. But if my decision, and it looks like it may be, that Bob Quinn's choosing Jim Caldwell, I don't think Jim Caldwell is the man for the job. So for whatever label you want to give me, I still may be right. And I'll say it again. I don't think Jim Caldwell is the man for the job. And so far, I think based upon what I've seen, he's not rewriting the history of coaching football here. It's a team that went out to Seattle and laid an egg. It's all Jim Caldwell's fault. It's not the refs. It's upon the man that is in the business of winning. And in the business of winning, you put that on tape, you're going to be in a situation that is going to be, you're going to open yourself up for a lot of critique. And so that's where we're at. There's a lot of things to look at and a lot of things to break down. And we're going to do all that. Here on the podcast network, we try to do as many podcasts a week as we can, and we're able to talk freely about all our teams. And whether you agree or disagree, listen, I enjoy the banter. These are my opinions. I stand by them. And wholeheartedly, I hope I'm wrong. I hope that my perception is wrong. I hope Matthew Stafford wins a Super Bowl. I hope Jim Caldwell wins a Super Bowl with the Lions. I would love it. But then don't turn around and rub it in my face. This is my opinion. This is what the question is. Do you think the Detroit Lions can win a Super Bowl with this in place? I say no. Doesn't make me less of a fan. I'm a guy that breaks up my day by turning on a microphone and talking passionately about the Lions because I care. I want them to win. So that's where we're at. That's the performance they put out there. That's just what I think about it. I'm not in favor of Jim Caldwell. I'm not in favor of Matthew Stafford. Things got to get a lot better, and I just wish that the Lions didn't do things the way they did it. That's all. Why not just stay silent about Jim Caldwell, wait till the week ends, and then you don't look ridiculous? Let people ask about Jim Caldwell's job. He knows it's coming. What are you afraid of? A couple questions like, hey, what's your stance with the organization? He knows it. He says it. I'm in the winning business. Now, it wasn't 56-3 like I said, but it was damn near close, 26-6, and you looked awful. A better coach would have gotten more out of this bunch than Jim Caldwell. That's the question you got to ask. Okay, don't use the Lions' history as an excuse to set the bar. Set the bar high. Don't set the bar low and then clap like seals that the Lions didn't stink. No, the bar is where do they stand compared to Super Bowl teams? They're not close, and I don't think they get any closer with Jim Caldwell. Sure, if you want to make the postseason every year and you want to get the first round, the second round, you want to get to the NFC title game, fine. Jim Caldwell is your guy. He's not a bum coach. He'll do that. Okay, but in terms of evaluating a coach, I just ask, can he get me a Super Bowl? And I just say no. That's just my stance. And Matthew Stafford, again, another year we're waiting for that elusive statement victory. We're all waiting. And I guess, I just don't want to wait with him, lining his pockets with, $26 million a year. But unfortunately, that might be the direction we're heading. And the Lions are going to do what they do. But that doesn't preclude me from stating my opinion. And like I said, in terms of the whole debate thing regarding fans, hey, there's no real rule about it. If you want to be undying, be ride or die. Go tell your audience if you do a podcast that the Lions are going to win the Super Bowl every year. You have people out there telling their audience that the Lions are going to win the Super Bowl this year. Okay, you do that. I respect that. But that's not how I feel. I respect anybody's opinion, and you should do the same. If you disagree, tell me why the Lions were going to beat Seattle. I think we made an argument as to what was going to happen, and it did. So with that, I'm going to end this nonsense. Another year, it's time to look for the draft. Definitely we'll talk about the Lions' needs. We'll talk about it more later on this week on the other podcasts that I do. But I appreciate you downloading this. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to it. It means a lot. Thank you for supporting all the podcasts on the network. Go visit DetroitSportsPodcast.com to get the schedule and to check out all the work that we're doing. We're doing great things here. Jason will be back next week for another edition of the Motor City Sports Rant. Thank you for downloading.
Okay, nice idiot. You. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.